The following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Hi, welcome to The Ring and All Other Sports. My name is Leo Connors, and I'm your host, and I have a very special guest tonight, Jason Stuart, wrestling announcer and personality.
Thank you. Appreciate the invite to be on the show.
Not a problem, man. Glad to have you. Real quick, I just want to give a couple shout-outs to my old co-host, Derek Dukes. What's up, Derek? Anthony Mark Balkas, and Tiago and his kids, Braden and Anthony. What's up, guys? Hope you're all watching. Jason, you pretty much have watched the show, you've told me, so you pretty much know what we're going to do here. We're just going to do a little get-to-know-you interview and stuff. Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Somerville, Massachusetts. Very kind of, when I was growing up, when I was younger, it was very family-oriented area. It's become more of a, I don't want to say yuppie, but you kind of know what I'm feeling. More of a younger, upper level. They're not so much families anymore, so. Yeah. But that's where I grew up, and that's where I met Bo, who I'm sure we're going to talk about later.
Yeah.
So,
we're going to talk about a lot of guys today.
Yeah, and so, yeah, it was a good place to grow up, actually.
Nice. Did you play sports as a kid?
I played a lot of sports as a kid, very athletic. Basketball, baseball, football. Never really got into hockey, but most of those, yeah, I was pretty much into every sport, and still am. Can't play them anymore, but I'm still very much into watching them.
Did you play anything in high school or anything?
I did for a little while, but had a medical condition which kind of prevented me from going any further with that.
Right.
And actually ties into how I ended up in the wrestling business because it ended up keeping me from going into the ring and forcing me to pursue other ways of being a part of the business. So.
Right. That's awesome. How old were you when you first saw professional wrestling?
Oh, geez. I want to say, I think my first real professional wrestling event that I can remember. I know I probably saw it beforehand, but I remember WrestleMania 4.
Okay.
Just the imagery of, Macho Man with the belt, hoisting Elizabeth up on his shoulders at the end of the show, and
that was the tournament one.
Yep. And then the slow build all the way to the next year when he faced off with Hogan for the title at WrestleMania 5. So, yeah, that was my first real memory, and certainly the first major storyline I remember.
Right. Did you any like your friends that you hung out with every day, were they into wrestling too? Or?
Yeah, I had a friend, Mike. He used to get all the pay-per-views, so we used to go over to his house and watch them, and just kind of hang out all night watching all the pay-per-views. Every WCW, WWF, ECW when those were on. It was a routine every time there was a pay-per-view. That's where we were.
Right, nice. The ECW pay-per-views are crazy too. I used to love those.
They were insane, but they don't hold up. You go back and watch them now, and it's. And just, with the knowledge we have now of things, you sit back and you watch it, and you go, oh my God, I can't believe they did that to their bodies. It's insane.
That was totally crazy.
But when you're a teenage kid and you're watching, oh my God, this is amazing.
I mean, they definitely had everybody hooked on them
when
they came out. Because it was something different.
Yep.
It was just something different that we weren't getting.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so let's talk about how you got involved in professional wrestling.
Yeah. So my friend, I made mention of him, Bo Douglas, my best friend. I actually ran into him, and we met at a wrestling show at Anthony's in Somerville. They didn't do very many shows there. This was one of the ones they put on. It was actually headlined by a guy named Sexton Hardcastle, who you might know better as Edge.
Yeah.
One of his very rare appearances in the New England area. But yeah, me and my friend Mike, who I talked about earlier, we got there to help set up the ring, because we were kids, and we heard you get there early, you can help set up the ring, you can meet the wrestlers. It'd be kind of cool. Apparently Bo had the same idea, and so we all ended up working ring crew that night together. And don't try this at home, kids, but we were all doing our own different backyard wrestling at the time.
Right.
So we kind of hooked up with his little group, and off we went from there. So that was how I got into to meeting Bo.
Right.
And he was really, to be fair, the reason I'm probably in the wrestling business at the time. He and Wagner Brown, who was another kid we hung out with all the time back in high school, Another guy, when we hooked up with them, we started going to all their houses for the pay-per-views. But we went. They were really adamant about wanting to get into the ring. Around this time was when I found out I had my medical condition, which was going to keep me from ever participating in the ring. I was never going to get cleared by any doctors to do it. But they, at the time, started going to Killer Kowalski's.
Right.
Just hanging out and being a part of things and watching and observing, because they were too young at the time to officially sign up. So it was at that time I started going with them and just really enjoying soaking up all the knowledge. There was some great people there at the time, teaching, training, and just the psychology, picking up why people did things. And Walter, at a certain point after we had been there and we were consistently there every time, would start letting us do things like go in the ring and play referees for the practices and things like that. And it was really cool. Just getting to talk to the guys and hang out with them and kind of pick their brains about why they did certain things where. And as Bo and Wagner started becoming in-ring performers, obviously my time of hanging out there, I didn't want to be the third wheel sitting there. And so I kind of took a step back from that. But Bo and I were doing high school football together in Somerville. We were doing the broadcasts for the local channel. And at that time, Bo had hooked up with Tony Rumble. And Tony was looking for somebody else to do a TV show for him, do some play-by-play for him. And Bo had mentioned that I'd be interested. And so I went to meet Tony at Good Times during one of his shows. Bo said, hey, come by the show, we'll introduce you, and you guys can talk about it. So I went to the show, and Tony and I sat, and we had a couple minutes of conversation. We basically said, why don't you come down to the studio? We'll set up a time for have you come down to the studio. We'll run through it, see how it feels, and we'll go from there. This was, I want to say it was about 2-3 weeks, and then Bo called me in the middle of the night and just said, Tony's gone. And he had passed away, and I never really got the chance to work with him as much as I certainly would have loved to, because everybody I know who did just absolutely raves about what it was like back then. But Jason took over the company shortly after that, and Jason and Bo were really close. They'd come through Kowalski's together, and when Jason wanted somebody to put commentary on his show, Bo immediately suggested me. Jason was all good with it, and we were off and running. And it was really cool at that time because I got to not only be the voice of the NWA New England, which was a position I definitely didn't take lightly. There's a lot of tradition behind that name. But I also got to be a part of booking meetings, sitting in, coming up with storylines, creative ideas.
So they had you right in there.
Yeah, it was a great time. I had a ton of fun back then. Same time I'm going to college at the time. So I'm going to college, then I'm getting out of work at midnight, and I'm getting out of work, and we're going over to Jay's house, and we're having booking meetings till 2 in the morning. And so it was a time. It was good to be young, because I don't know if I could keep those kind of hours anymore.
No, that's awesome. That was a great story. I got to ask you one question though. When you went back and you said Sexton Hardcastle, do you remember who put that show on? Like who the promoter was?
I don't remember off the top of my head.
I'm just curious.
I know. I think. Oh God, I don't think it was a Walter show. I know Walter did a show at Anthony's at one point, but I don't think this was one of his. It certainly wasn't one of Tony's. I don't remember off the top of my head who was putting it on. I was
afraid I'd ask.
At that point, I was young enough that I didn't know the promoter aspect of things either to even think of it. And this far removed, I don't remember who it was, but it was a great show. I remember.
Yeah. Now, when you said you started, doing the commentary for NWA New England, did you do it by yourself, or did you have a partner that you
I had many partners.
Yeah.
We ran through a bunch of people. Some great guys and some guys who were a lot of fun to work with. I'm finally, and Jay, if you're catching this, I'm going to blow up your spot. Jason, when we first started, Jason Rumble, did a horrible English accent and called himself Buddy Wait, and he was my broadcast partner originally. We had, I think, me and Chris Charisma did it for a while. Me and Vinny Capelli for quite a while. I loved working with Vinny. He's a great guy.
knowledgeable too.
Very much so. Very much so. But I think those were the main ones I worked through. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. I think that's when I first knew who you were when you were working for NWA New England. So now, what college did you go to?
I went to Bunker Hill.
Oh, Bunker Hill. Yeah. I used to do the vending machines.
Oh, there you go.
All right, so why don't we just move right along into the name game? And if anything pops in your head that, like a good story whatever,
Definitely.
pass. If you don't want to say anything bad about someone, you can just pass, and we'll just go from
Sure.
there. How about my former co-host, Derek Dukes?
Derek Dukes, I believe, I could be wrong, but I think I was the one that coined the phrase D3 for him. I met him, I think, at the Belltime Club. Actually, ironically enough, I found out later I met him years before at Tony Rumble memorial dinners, things like that. The old CWA, NWA New England events. He was working security, and I didn't even connect him until he showed me a picture of us at the same table together. Like, oh, wow, yeah, that's... but yeah, no, Derek's always been great to me. He's always been a good dude. I remember at one point we were doing a benefit show. I want to say it's Tewksbury. It was about an hour and a half, 45-minute drive for me.
Yeah.
And I had done something, and the air conditioning in my car went crap to bed. And it was about 106 degrees out and humid, so I was sweating like crazy when I arrived at the building. And Derek said, "What's going on?" I just told him I was irritated, and he's like, "Well, let me go take a look at it." He goes out and he did something, and also my air conditioner was working on the way home, so he really bailed me out that day. So I'm having a hard time ever saying anything bad about Derek.
Right. No, I hear, and I'll tell you, he loves working on cars too.
Oh, yeah.
He found out that I had my brakes done somewhere, and
Yeah.
he like yelled at me, said, "Why did you spend all that money when you could have had me do it?" You mentioned him earlier, and I love this guy, Jason Rumble.
There are a lot of stories I could tell you about Jason. I don't know how many of them he'd want me to tell in a public forum. But no, again, another one of those guys, and this is probably going to be a theme throughout this list, is a guy that a lot of people have a lot of opinions about. I decided, like we were talking about before the show, I decided a long time ago, I'm only going to judge people by how they treated me. Jay's always been great to me, given me a ton of opportunities to be a part of this business. Like I said, I talked about without Bo, I wouldn't be in this business. I make a case without Jay, I wouldn't be in this business too. So always been a great guy to me. He's, to me, one of the more underrated guys in terms of what he can do in the ring. I think he doesn't get mentioned with the groups of the top guys, and I think he probably deserves to be when you look at his list of accomplishments.
Oh, absolutely.
Including on a national level with the NWA.
Yeah, NWA NWA Junior Heavyweight Champion. And I mean, great.
Little D, I don't know if you know this little tidbit, Leo.
Yeah.
For a couple of moments, he was the NWA Heavyweight Champion of the world.
Really?
Yeah, we ran
I did not know that.
We ran an event down in Rhode Island, and we brought in Steve Carino, who was the NWA Heavyweight Champion at the time. And there was a little bit of finish that might mirror the name of a professional wrestling legend, if you will. And so for a shining moment, Jason Rumble was the NWA Heavyweight Champion.
That is awesome. And you mentioned Carino. What a worker he is. And I remember when he first started, how skinny he was and all that, but kid was unbelievable.
Oh, yeah, and he turned himself into a great commentator, too.
Yeah, and now he's down in NXT helping out train guys.
Yep, and I was actually hoping they were going to put him in that Corey Graves spot, because I think he has a lot to give as a commentator and as an announcer, too. So.
Right. He may end up down the line. I wouldn't be surprised, I mean,
Hopefully.
they'll probably utilize him as much as they can.
Yeah.
We'll go from Jason, and you brought him up earlier, the late, great Tony Rumble.
Yeah. Like
I know
said,
you didn't work with him a lot, but...
I didn't get a chance to work with him a ton, but working around his family, working around the company that he helped build and create, there's nothing... Every show you feel his presence, whether it was in comments people would make, just general atmosphere and reverence. The mark he left on New England wrestling will never, ever be filled.
True.
And I've had this conversation with a lot of people, but to me, when Tony passed, everything changed in independent wrestling in New England.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it did.
That's sort of the flashpoint where you can look back, because at the time you had Walter and you had Tony, and they were pretty much the only guys running shows. I think Bert was running out in Central Mass, kind of where I'm living now. But that was really it. Nobody went up against those guys. And then as soon as Tony passed, you had everybody kind of splintered off. And that was when you really saw the talent pool kind of split. Right. And it was just not as strong in terms of draw, because there were so many places for people to go.
Yeah, absolutely. Tony's shows, too, he'd have 700 to 1,000 people in some of those shows.
More than that in a few of them, yeah.
Now, you brought up the CWA earlier. Is that the ones that he used to run down the beach, too, at Salisbury? Was that CWA?
That was Wrestling Star Wars, I think you're thinking of.
Right.
That was Knuckles Nelson took that over after Tony passed.
Okay,
that
so Knuckles, when he ran, I think he was bringing in, like, Perry Saturn and guys
Yeah,
like that.
CWA,
I remember going to the beach a couple of times.
Yeah, CWA was Century Wrestling Alliance.
Right.
That was what later became NWA New England when they merged with the NWA.
Okay, I got you. Nice. How about a guy that just recently retired because of an unfortunate accident? Luis Demon Ortiz.
Yeah, and we touched on it again before the show a little bit. I started working on a podcast about a year ago, the Rundown Wrestling Podcast, available on iTunes.
Check it out, guys.
Yes. And I splintered off a little bit the last couple of months into doing my own sit-down interview series. It's basically just me for an hour with local guys. I've actually had some guys from up in Wisconsin, Brew City Wrestling.
Oh, wow.
So I'm trying to branch out and get as much diversity as I can. But as soon as Louis announced that he had to retire, I talked to him. I said, listen, I'd really love to have you on. And it was his first podcast ever, so it was kind of cool for me to get that honor of being able to be sat down. We had about an hour of a good conversation. I learned a lot of things about Louis I didn't even know.
Right.
So it's great. He's a great guy, really is. Always been super nice to me.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, and you can probably go up and down this list that you have. The thing that for me, when I look back on my years and my career working in the wrestling business, the thing that I'm going to remember the most is that despite the fact that I wasn't an in-ring guy, I've taken a bump here or there, but I wasn't an in-ring guy, and up and down that list are guys who have never treated me like less.
Right.
They've all been great to me. They've all done their part to help me, and they've all treated me like part of the family, and that's awesome. Something I will forever be grateful for.
Right. That is awesome. And you're right, though. Most of these guys, all of them pretty much, to me, too, just like you, they're all great guys. How about a guy that's been on the show twice already and will be coming on a third time when we have, actually, Luis Demon Ortiz is coming on, and Big Woody.
Oh, Woody. Woody and I have had our butting heads moments.
Okay.
We have a lot of debates. We're both very opinionated guys.
Yeah.
I have absolutely nothing but respect for Woody. And I'm currently working with Atlantic Pro Wrestling, where I'm the commissioner over there. I probably wouldn't be there if it weren't for Woody.
Okay.
It started because I was working at VCW at the time with Bo and Jay, and when I came back, they were right in the middle of this invasion angle they were doing with APW.
Yeah.
So I was doing play-by-play for VCW, and I ended up doing a show with Woody as my color guy, and it went really well. Woody and I, when we get behind a commentary table, we just have this amazing chemistry between the two of us.
That's awesome.
We work really well together. So I mentioned to him, I said, hey, if you, as part of this storyline, if you want to have me come in and kind of be the heel VCW commentator and fill in for the big blow-off, I'm happy to make the trip up. And he said, oh, well, let me think about it. I'll get back to you. And he just messaged me. He's like, yeah, we'll give it a shot. So I came in. It was actually one of the funner nights I've had as a commentator, because I get to kind of play the heel commentator, which is not something I usually get to do. And growing up a huge fan of Bobby Heenan, I got to drop some of those old Bobby Heenan lines and stuff like that. And that was great. But so I kind of figured it was a one-off. They ended the show. APW won. I got thrown out of the building physically. But I kind of figured it was a one-off, and it was cool. And thanks for Woody called and said, you guys, you did such an amazing job. We'd love to have you back as a regular and fill in. So anytime one of their regular commentary guys, they called me up.
That's cool.
Yeah, and that's actually how I got to call probably the match I'm most proud of my calling in all my years of wrestling. I got to call John Walters and Luis Ortiz, which is one of my favorite matches ever. Yeah.
That's incredible. They're actually on the list too.
Yeah.
So, how about Slick Wagner Brown?
I love Wagner. Wagner is one of my best friends in the business. Like I said, we grew up together before the business. We were in high school together. We used to hang out all the time. I know his family. They're all great people. They kind of took us in, Bo and I both. They would have us over for family dinners and things like that.
Nice.
The thing with Wagner is you can't not smile when Wagner's in a room. If you get him laughing, that laugh just fills up the entire room. He's a great guy. He like I said, he's not another guy. He and I are both very opinionated. We butt heads on things, but it's all about respect.
Right.
There's nothing but love with Wagner. I love him like a brother. And I honestly, for me, we talked about guys who are criminally under-recognized for what they can do. The fact that Wagner has never been a feature in a national promotion still kind of blows my mind.
Yeah, that's a travesty. Seriously, because he's got so much talent.
Yeah, absolutely.
Big favorite in my house too. Everybody loves Wagner. How about we'll go way back? Trooper Gilmore.
Oh, Troop. Trooper. I love Trooper. He's always just, again, another guy who I could tell you a lot of stories, none of which are suitable for air.
I believe that.
Yeah. But no, Trooper was always great to me. I remember him and Jeremy Patient.
Yes.
We had them tag teaming together back in NWA New England. And at first,
Criminally Insane?
yes.
Yes.
And that was the thing, just watching that whole thing kind of take shape from
Yeah.
the infancy of where we originally, hey, we need a tag team, let's throw these two guys together, to how they took that ball and just really ran with it and created a whole gimmick around it and made it work. And I think they're still working together. The NWW, I believe.
Yes. Yeah, Extreme, right? They
Yeah,
call it
and they're
NWW, New World Wrestling Extreme.
yeah, I believe so.
Yeah.
And those two of them are still working together down there. So
Nice. Yeah, they were great. I remember watching them as a tag team. They were really good.
Yeah,
They were
absolutely.
really good. How about a guy I like a lot, too, and he gave me crap the other day. I put on Facebook that I just don't understand Naomi being the champ. And he's like, I couldn't disagree more with this post. But awesome guy, Jose Perez.
Jose is awesome, very, very opinionated guy,
Yep,
but
that's for sure.
he's put in the time and he's earned the respect to have all those opinions that he has. He still works, does a lot with XWA, working down there. They put on great shows down there. I haven't had a chance to get down, and I hope to eventually. But yeah, I have a ton of respect for Jose. There's one of the cooler things I got to do in the last few years was last year and we're going to do it again this year, we ran a wrestling show at Fenway Park.
Yes.
First time in 60 years there'd been wrestling at Fenway Park.
Plans I wanted to go so bad.
Amazing day to be a part. It was chaotic. It was crazy. There were times I thought about I'm taking off. I'm out of here.
Yeah.
Because I love Bo, but Bo was running the show, and sometimes when Bo gets stressed, he's hard to deal with. And he'll tell you the same thing.
Right.
But one of the cooler parts of that whole day was I got to kind of sit around Gorilla because I was running Gorilla at a certain point in the show for Bo, and I got to sit there right next to Jose Perez and Steve King.
Wow.
And just listen to those two back and forth discuss psychology, what was going on in the ring. And like I said, I've been around this business, in and around this business for close to 20 years now, Leo, and I got to tell you, I still mark out for moments like that.
Right.
When I get to sit and listen to two accomplished veterans like that, and that's when, to me, I'm still under the learning tree every time I get in that situation.
Nice. Now, when you did that show lasted a lot. Was it like I mean, you guys
all
had
day.
so many wrestlers. And
Yeah.
You didn't have really a time limit, right? So you just kept throwing matches out there?
Yeah, it was kind of an all-day thing, and I think originally the plan was, one match every 15 minutes, every half hour. But, it's, the way it kind of works out is that those matches go 12 minutes, and then they kind of bleed into each other. So there were supposed to be longer breaks, I think, than we actually ended up doing. But yeah, it was chaotic. It was crazy. There were a ton of guys, like you mentioned, and that's a credit to Bo, because Bo wanted to get everybody on there who had helped him throughout his career. It was a big, big day, and it was looking back, it's one of the coolest things I've ever gotten to do in the business.
That's awesome. Because I'll tell you, man, I was so bummed. We had plans that day, and I'm like, if we weren't doing this, I'd be at Fenway Park right now watching wrestling, like you said. First time in 60 years, and they'll be back this summer in August, right?
July 23rd,
July
the El Mundo
23rd.
Festival. I believe it's $10 for tickets,
Yep.
and you go in there, you bring the whole family. They get tons of stuff for kids. It's not just wrestling.
Right.
It's a whole festival rolled into things. We're just a part of the events.
Yep.
And the really cool thing with last year, and I said we had a big Facebook group with all the people who were on the show, and the day after the show, I went on there and I posted they should be very proud of what they did last year, because they took a bunch of people who weren't there to see wrestling, and our section was packed the whole day. And those were not people that showed up for a wrestling show. Those were people who were captivated by what those men and women were doing in the ring, and they should all be very proud of what they did that day.
That's awesome. It really is. Now, seeing you brought him up, I definitely want to talk about Steve King.
Love Steve. I remember I met Steve originally at Walters when we were hanging out. I was talking about earlier when Bo and Wagner and I would be there hanging out and helping out. Steve was doing a lot of helping Walter at that time. Walter was still getting in the ring at that time and teaching and instructing, but Steve was doing a lot of the hands-on stuff too. Him and Freight Train Dan is another great guy.
Yeah.
And they, Steve's always been great to be around, and him and Damon Darkangelo, the Archangels, for my money, again, in this day and age, if they were active and competing today, I think they'd be in a national promotion. I think they were guys that they didn't have the giant look that the big companies were looking for at the time, and it's unfortunate because I don't think I've ever seen a better tag team when they were on their game, and witnessing some of the matches between them and the 2K Club, Wagner and Jay, It's really some of the best wrestling I've seen.
Wow, that's pretty cool because now you brought up Damien D'Angelo. He's a great wrestler, but a phenomenal tag team wrestler. I mean, him and Jason with the Crown Jewels was a good team too.
Yeah, and the babyface assassin was what we used to call him.
Oh, really?
What he used to be known as, because he had this great heel persona, but you look at him and everything about him screams babyface. Young, good-looking guy, just built like he's cut out of stone.
Yep.
Great in the ring. Had an innate way of making the crowd hate him. Had all the tools and everything you could have possibly wanted. And things didn't break his way, but I still see him from time to time at shows. And he's the first guy come up and give you a big hug. He's great dude. Been through a lot, and glad to see him in a good place.
Nice, yeah, he's a phenomenal wrestler. How about a guy that's going to be making his second appearance a few months down the line, and he just made his return at APW with his alter ego, Stiff Mike Apocalypse.
Stiff Mike. Love Stiff Mike. Another one of those guys who came up in that group of guys through the NWA New England when I first started out there. And Mike, and you can ask him about it when he comes on. But the funny part about my relationship with Mike is that Mike is the type of guy that will give a lot of people a lot of crap. But I've never had any fears of giving it right back to him.
Right.
And he and I will go back and forth. But he's kind of reached a point, I think, where he stops even trying to mess with me because he knows
he's just going to give it back to him.
He's not going to win on that one. But yeah, he's always been a great. He's like a brother too. He's a great dude.
And it's funny that you brought that up because he told us, me and Derek on here, that he's actually feels like he's matured quite a bit.
He really has.
He's not a big dick like he was.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it shows when you speak of the maturity, it shows that maturity for him to be able to recognize that and sit there and say, yeah, that's how I was back then, and to make an effort to not do that.
Right.
And back in the day, and he's still very talented, but back in the day, you talk about big men who could move around the ring. I remember watching some of his matches and some of the things he used to do back then. He was teaming with another guy. They were Kingdom of Darkness with Damien Darkside as their manager. Great tag team gimmick back then.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Mike's a great guy, man. I can't wait to have him back on here. Now, a mutual friend of ours, and you definitely work for him, Mr. Pat Dillon.
Love Pat too. Pat's a great guy. Pat's another one of those guys who's been really great to me in my career. Always finds a spot for me when he's doing something, and always takes care of me. I appreciate it. He's been great to my family. My medical condition, Marfan syndrome, is something my son has been diagnosed with as well, my 7-year-old son Jackson, who, when we talk about why, and we didn't even touch on it, but I took a hiatus from wrestling for a few years. And then when my son was born, it was one of those things, well, I'd like him to get to see me doing this.
Oh, yeah.
And that was a big part of my decision to come back and get back into VCW at the time I did. But yeah, Pat's always been super supportive of we raise funds for our Marfan's Foundation every year. Yeah. And Pat's always been super supportive of that. Great help, great friend, and I really appreciate everything he's done for us.
Awesome, because Pat is a great guy, man. I told you off here the things he's done for me, even, and I didn't even know him that long. He's just a super guy.
Yeah, and another guy who goes out of his way to find spots for people.
Right, yeah.
Even if he doesn't necessarily have a spot, he'll make a spot for a guy.
Right.
So I always appreciate that.
Yeah, you can tell that Pat's just a good-natured guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you should see his first two, appearances on the show was one before and one after.
Yeah, oh yeah.
It's amazing. I can't help but say it all the time how proud I am of him.
Yeah.
Because you can get it off. Keeping it off is the hard thing.
Although, Pat, I'm watching your Facebook feed and stuff. It's a little bit crazy with the donuts, Pat.
Yeah, the other day donuts.
Slow it down.
Yeah.
Love you, Pat.
We love you, Pat. That's right. We already talked about it a little bit. Maybe you want to say anything else about Bo?
Like I said, best man in my wedding. My best friend growing up.
Yep.
Absolutely a brother. He's lived with in my house. He's been a part of my family. He's the uncle to my son.
Nice.
Like I said, I don't know where I would be in the business without Bo. I don't know where I'd be in life without Bo. We were always there for each other through some of our darkest times in life, and always came out the other side.
Awesome. And you need friends like that.
Absolutely.
You really do. I have a couple friends like that.
I'm an only child, Leo, and I always say that I got to pick my brother. And Bo was the one. Bo was my brother. No doubt.
Bo was the one you picked.
Yeah, absolutely.
What about, you brought him up earlier as one of your commentator partners, Chris Bartolo.
Chris is one of those guys. A lot of people either love him or hate him.
Yeah, I like him.
I've had moments of both with
Yeah,
Chris.
yeah.
I like to think of my relationship with Chris in kind of two parts. And in the original run in NWA New England, he and I butted heads an incredible amount.
Wow.
We had a lot of arguments, a lot of fights, a lot of storming out of studios. He's very opinionated.
Yeah.
You know, as I've said, so am I.
Right.
He's very. He'll really beat you over the head if he thinks he's right about something.
Yeah.
When I came back, and part of my whole thing at the time was because Bo had asked me on behalf of Jason if I would come back. They did a Tony Rumble tribute show, and I just came by to visit.
Right.
And I got there and I said, well, why don't you do the Tony Rumble? Just have you come in for old time's sake. It'll be kind of like a big deal. Like, it'd be like JR coming back to WWE for a show. So I thought, all right, sure, well, why not? And I had a good time doing it. And I guess after we watched, Jay went back and watched the footage. Like, I want to have him back. I want him as the announcer again.
Right.
You know, because it kind of brought up all the old time feelings for
well,
him.
and you do a good job at it too.
I appreciate that. I'm my own worst critic, so I never think so. But yeah, so at that point, Bo came in and said, Jay really wants you to come back. Is it something you'd be interested in doing?
Right.
He said, oh, you'd be working with Chris, just so you know. And like I said, he and I had our issues in that first run. So I said, you know, as long as he and I sit down and talk, we'll make sure it works out. Right. And we sat down and I said, Chris, you know, I know we're both here just to do the best thing we can do. But I'm not going to take the same crap from you I took last time. You know, we're going to have, if we're going to do this, we're going to do this right. We're going to have a good relationship. And honestly, that was maybe the talk we should have had a long time ago. Because from that point on, he and I we vibed and worked together in a way we haven't. From whether it be doing play-by-play and color together. He was open to my ideas on a creative standpoint. When I would suggest maybe we shoot this way, he was perfectly open to it. We still butted heads from time to time because like I said, we're opinionated guys. But it was one of the more fun times working with Chris I can remember. It was back in the VCW when I came back. And, you know, he's gone through a lot lately too. And I'm glad to see he's still hanging in there. And then hope he continues to. And, you know, he's another guy who, you know, if he ever needs me for something, he knows where to find me.
Right. Yeah, definitely a good guy. I like Chris a lot. He's always treated me very well.
Yep.
How about one of the guys I had in here a couple weeks ago, Mr. Brian Privatera, Aaron Amadeus.
Brian is the definition of a guy who I'm going to say has always been good to me. Because there are a lot of people, and Brian will sit here and tell you himself,
he
there
will.
are a lot of guys who don't like Brian.
He told us that right here.
And I like Brian a lot. Brian's always been very good. He's very good to my kid. And and you reach a certain point as a parent where you really kind of judge people by how they treat your kids.
Absolutely.
And Brian's always one of those guys who comes running up to me like, hey, when I get to a show, hey, how's your little guy doing? And stuff like that resonates with me. I really appreciate that. Part of me gets really frustrated with Brian because I watch him and I can see what he could be. And he'll tell you himself.
Oh, yeah.
You know, that he doesn't put in the type of work that he could be putting in to get to where he could be. He's got all the natural tools. He's got all the things you can't teach.
Right.
It's just
Gets
the
people
stuff.
to hate him easily.
It's just the stuff you got to put in the work for that he doesn't. You know, it's not interesting to him to do that, and that's fine.
Right.
You know, there's no problems with that. Like I said, I got nothing but respect for Brian. He's always been a good dude to me. But that, I think, is where a lot of people have frustrations with him, is that they look at what he could be and what he refuses to be.
Brian, like you, same thing. I treat people the same way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You have to.
Yeah.
You really should at least.
No, and Brian, like I said, Brian's always been great to me, and I got no problems with Brian.
How about a guy that I just met when he came in here for the first time, Ed Hunt, Uncle Eddie.
Uncle Eddie, yeah.
Turned out to be a great guy.
Yeah, and like with Woody, in storylines, Eddie and I have gone back and forth quite a bit. But everything I said about how Brian is to my kid, magnify it by 100%. Ed is just goes out of his way to effusively run over and say treats Jackson like a rock star at the APW shows.
They should. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That shows the respect they have for you too, though.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I appreciate it. Like I said, treat me like crap, treat my son great, and we'll have a fine relationship. Doesn't matter to me. But Eddie's never treated me like anything but part of the APW family. He's just a great guy to work with. He's always open to listening to ideas and suggestions, and he's given me a lot of the freedom to incorporate things I wanted to do into stuff. So we talked about earlier Demon Ortiz having to retire.
Yeah.
Interesting story about that was we get there that day, and I said, Ed, what do you need me to do? And Eddie just says, well, we're going to have Rich Palladino, who I think he's on the list too.
Yeah.
Amazing guy.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Probably one of my idols in terms of as an announcer in New England, because there's
Right.
nobody better, and how that guy is not on a national promotion, I don't understand.
Yeah. Oh, you're right.
When you look at the supermodel ring announcers that they have out there who don't even know the business.
Right.
A guy like Rich Palladino can't get a break, is just criminal. But in any event, he was there at that show, and Ed's like, he's going to bring him on, he's going to introduce him, and we'll have you come out and maybe shake his hand, do the whole deal. About 5 minutes before we're set to do this, Rich looks over to me. He's like, well, you work here all the time. You should probably be the one to introduce him. I don't have anything prepared at this point.
Right.
So I just get in the ring and I speak off the cuff, and I'm kind of thinking, okay, well, I don't know how, this is not how Ed kind of laid it out, so I don't know if we want to. I get it back. Ed's like, perfect. That was exactly what it should have been.
Nice.
So
that's cool.
Yeah, so Ed's always given me the freedom to kind of run with the ball and trust my feelings and my judgments when I'm out there, and that's awesome as somebody who's performing in front of a camera sometimes, to just have that freedom to know that the people in the back have your back and trust you.
Right. No doubt. Now, did you watch the one with him and Brian?
Yes.
And I love the stories how he worked for WWF.
Yeah.
I had no idea. That was really cool. And it interested me a lot because that's when I fell in love with wrestling.
Yeah, and that's the cool thing about doing these, and I've learned this doing my own talk show.
Yeah.
The things you learn about people, like I said, I've known Wagner my whole life. When I was doing this show with him, I never knew he had an agreement to work with WWE. That just never came to pass. So those are the things that you learn about the people you know, and that's kind of, to me, the coolest thing about it.
Right. Absolutely. I agree with you 100%. How about the late, great, the guy that probably had more heat than anybody in New England independent wrestling history, DC Dillinger?
Every young wrestler who strives to be a heel should go back and watch Dave's matches.
Yes.
A funny story about Dave, and this is the one story with Dave particularly that always sticks in my head, because, like I said, I've been in this business a very long time, and there are moments where you still learn things, and things still dawn on you. I was working VCW with Dave, and it was before the show started. We were all kind of huddled around the ring, just hanging out like you do before shows.
Right.
And I was kind of joking around with Dave, and I was like, hey, I hate calling your matches. And he's like, what do you mean? He just kind of laughs. What do you mean? And I said, well, you spend all this time out on the floor during your matches. And that was one of Dave's things, was he would, sometimes Kevin Owens does it, I think, in the WWE, where he just kind of bails out right at the bell, and it spends a lot of time just wasting time around the ring.
Right. Which drives the fans crazy.
Right. And I said that to Dave, like, when you're doing that, it's a lot of filler for the announcers to try to fill in. There's no action for us to call. It puts me in a tough spot. And he just kind of laughs at me, and he looks at me, and he's like, if it bothers you that much, what do you think it does to the fans?
Exactly.
And I never made that connection before he said that. And then I concede the point, Dave, and he's right. And Dave's one of those guys, I didn't have much of he was around before, but I never really had much of a relationship with him, and I'm really glad that I got that second chance in VCW to really get to know and sit down and talk to him, and get to experience the kind of great guy Dave was. And if I hadn't come back in that run, I would have missed out on that, and I'm glad I didn't before he passed.
Now, how about we go to his old tag team partner in Sabotage, the former TNA and Ring of Honor World Champion, Eddie Edwards.
Yeah, Eddie's another guy. Didn't get to work with him a ton. I did work with him a few times down in NWA New England. Right around the time right before I took a step back, Eddie was kind of really rising to prominence in New England at that point. But it's funny, I remember, and they did a great job. I think it was the night he won the title on TNA. They did a whole package with Dave.
Yes.
They pronounced Dave's name wrong a few times, but that's okay. It was the thought was there. But I couldn't help but remember, I couldn't help but think, watching Eddie raise the belt and then point up, what a special moment that was. And it's funny because I sat there and I looked at my wife and I was like, I can't believe the kid who I remember in the shiny silver pants with the rubber bands in his hair is now a world heavyweight champion on a national promotion. And
amazing, huh?
Happy for all his success. And that was really cool. I don't know if you caught the TNA pay-per-view a couple weeks ago. I think.
No, I didn't.
He actually wore tights. It said Die Hard down the side,
really?
which I thought was kind of just a cool homage to where he came. He got to team with his wife, Alicia. And they had
That's pretty cool.
Really cool match.
Is that what the against Davey
and Angelina, yeah.
Angelina, yeah.
Yeah,
I didn't
so-
see the pay-per-view, but I probably try to go back and watch it.
It had to be a very cool moment for him. I was very happy for him.
Oh, absolutely. And like you said, though, that package they did too,
Yeah.
wasn't amazing. I remember I didn't watch the show that at the time when it was on, but George was posting about it, George Carroll.
Yep.
So I went back and watched it. It was amazing. Amazing.
Yeah, and we talked about Wagner, and that's one of those things. We talk about Wagner as an in-ring performer, but as a trainer too. He was Eddie's trainer.
Right.
So when you look and you pay tribute to how good Eddie is, just think Wagner had a lot to do with that. Wagner will pass the buck and say it's all Eddie. Yeah. But Wagner had a lot to do with that.
Nice. Yeah, he's a great trainer right now. It's Test of Strength up in
yeah.
Connecticut. What, Danbury? I think it's Danbury, Connecticut. Go see Slick Wagner Brown. How about a great tag team? And I know you probably don't have a lot, mention about one of them.
Yeah.
But Hanson and Rowe, War Machine.
Yeah, I don't know Rowe. I've never personally met him. Todd, I was able to be the ring announcer for his first match. I got to call him out to the ring for the first time. I'm running through a stretch of guys now where guys, I'm starting to be the last guy to introduce people out to the ring, which is sort of bittersweet. Guys like Evan Six, guys like Kyle Storm. We talked about Luis Ortiz earlier. So all these guys kind of stepping aside from the business, and it's just kind of broken in my favor that I've been able to be that guy to do those honors for them that last time. Right. I had to, Kyle, when he came out of the ring from his last match, he just walked towards the curtain, just gave me a big hug.
Yeah, I was there.
Really
I couldn't
cool
believe
moment.
it. He started taking his boots off, and I'm like, whoa, he's calling it quits.
Yeah. But yeah, so Todd, I got to do his first match, and to see how far that guy's come from where he started, kind of like he started at Jay's school, the Rumble U at the time, and I remember, I believe it was the Johnny Blue name, I think came from Pat Doyle at the time, who was doing TV for us. Yeah, Pat Doyle's another great guy, who I learned a ton from back when I first broke in. But yeah, he came in and he was teaming with Bo for a while too, the Hanson brothers.
Yep, I remember that.
Todd's, I've seen very few guys who wanted to be good as bad as Todd does, and was willing to do everything he needed to do, and he deserves every single bit of success he gets, and I hope that he continues to achieve. Just won the IWGP Tag Team Championships for a second time.
Yeah, that was amazing.
To see that, the really cool thing about it is to see these guys that I helped to try to put over just in my small way as an announcer table, to see them achieve success on that level is really awesome for me. Just to know that I was there for the ride at some point.
And he's killing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Killing it.
Absolutely.
How about John Walters, or you want to call him RJ Brewer?
Yeah.
John Walters is what we pretty much know him better as.
Probably one of, and we talked about a few of them, but one of the guys who absolutely should have been a star in a national promotion.
Yes.
As good in the ring in New England as I've ever seen.
Yep.
No doubt about it. You go back, we talked about some of those matches he had with Demon. And I got to call the matches in APW, which were a lot of years later. They had a series in Chaotic that was incredible when they were younger. But they stepped in the ring APW years later and they hadn't lost a step. I mean, the matches were just as good. And I talked to the Demon about it when I sat down and interviewed him. It's like you don't even have to talk. You just know. And then it's that special kind of relationship guys have in the ring, and those two had it. But it's not just Louis had the same kind of relationship with Wagner. Wagner will say the same thing. And everybody, I think, that worked with John, RJ, whatever you want to call him, almost to a man, every one of those guys say he's the best they've ever been in the ring with. And that speaks to what he was able to do. And he's retired. He's stepped away from the business, and there's a big gap in the business there because he whether he's in ring teaching, he should be a part of this business because he's just that good, and he's got a lot he could give. And I hope someday that we see him come back.
Yeah, I'd love to see him come back around here and wrestle, or on a national scale. How about his old tag team partner, Vince Vicala? What was it? Was it 12-pack? Was the name of the team?
He had a couple. The Good Time Vince Vicala.
Good Time,
that was what he used, I think, in Chaotic mostly. My dealings with him were mostly back in NWA New England under Jay. We put him in a sweater vest. He was the Mean Street Posse before the Mean Street Posse was the Mean Street Posse. We had him the educated one.
Yes.
He came out with books, and people hated him. I mean, he was a heat magnet. He did an amazing job in that role. I always thought he was really underrated as a talent.
Yeah, I think so too.
I thought he was amazing in the ring. I saw some great matches he had with a lot of guys, and really just very talented guy. And I haven't seen him around in a very long time.
I think he lives in the Midwest or something.
Oh.
Seriously, I have him on Facebook.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty positive he doesn't live around here
Yeah.
at all. He's like in the Midwest.
Oh, well, I wish him the best because
Me too.
always a good dude to me.
Right? Yeah. How about we brought him up earlier, the voice of New England that everybody likes to call him, Rich Palladino.
He is the announcer that other announcers want to be like.
Right.
And I can only tell you, I got stuck with the unenviable task when Rich, at the time, was one of the first announcers ever to sign an exclusive contract with Chaotic back then, when Chaotic was giving out exclusive deals. I got stuck in the unenviable task of taking over as ring announcer after Rich left.
Right.
And Rich to this day says, I did a great job. I'll never agree to that. I will never, ever, ever think I can do anything as well as Rich does. He, like I said, he's an idol for me personally.
Yeah.
And has always been a great guy.
I agree with that. Great father.
Absolutely.
A role model,
Absolutely.
whatever you want. You know what I mean? Honestly, he really is.
Yeah, and I talked to him about that. I had him on my show too. I talked to him about that. As a dad, those moments where you get to take your kids backstage at NXT and introduce them to Shinsuke Nakamura
That was crazy,
and Finn Balor. I'm like, see, that makes me feel like a horrible dad because you get to do all that cool stuff. But no, he's a great guy. Absolutely nothing. I've never met anybody who had a bad thing to say about Rich.
Oh no,
so.
Definitely. I don't think anybody would.
Up and down that list.
He'd probably argue with us though. Probably find somebody.
Sure,
You know what I
but
mean?
up and down that list, I don't think you're going to find anybody who's almost universally liked as Rich Palladino.
Oh, I agree with that 100%. How about we'll go back a little ways? Tony Ulysses, who was the manager of the Crown Jewels.
Yeah. I worked with him mostly back in VCW. He was managing Dan Terry and Michelle Moulet at the time.
Okay.
Who were a young tag team, and Dan Terry's gone on to great things. And,
Yes, he has.
And I don't know if we'll get to him on this, but
no,
very talented young guy. I really hope. I'm really happy to see he's achieving all the success he should get. He puts in a lot of hard work, and really believes in what he's doing, and has kind of hit a niche. He's recognized what he can do and what he can bring to the business, and he's really focused on bringing that instead of worrying about his spot and stuff like that, like some guys do. But Dan's. I got nothing but respect for Dan. I really like Dan a lot.
Me too. Seeing we're down to about 10 minutes,
all right.
Why don't we just do this? And this way you can talk about who you want to talk. Point to it and,
All right, well, let's we can go to this guy.
Sam Amato, Makua.
Sam is perhaps, and I talked about Rich, Sam is, if Rich is the nicest guy in New England, Sam is number 2.
Right.
Always there with a big smile, happy to see you. Great guy, has worked his butt off to get in great shape. He's done an amazing job. And does a lot of work with kids.
I was going to say, he does a lot for the city. Everett,
absolutely.
Does a lot for the city of Everett.
Yeah, again, another guy, you get nothing ever bad to say about Sam.
Right.
Not a thing at all, great guy. There's a ton of guys.
Yeah.
It's funny because one of the things I talk about on my show all the time is the young talent in New England. And that's one of the reasons I'm so happy to be back working in wrestling since I came back, is because I feel like wrestling in New England is really in a boom period. If you look up and down every promotion, there are talented young guys. And I'm going to run through these guys. Yeah. You talk about right here, Flip Gordon.
Wow.
On a national level. The guy's, I think, 2 years in the business. 2
years in the business.
And he's working national television promotions. An amazing talent. Brick Mastone, another guy, built like just an ox. Yeah. And as agile and talented as a guy at that size you're going to see. This is a guy right here who, first time I saw him, I said, this guy is going to make money.
Right.
Christian Casanova. Yeah. And the reason I say that is because there are very few guys that I've seen come through New England who you don't have to know them at all. You can go to a show and have no idea who they are, and they walk through the curtain, and you are instantly hooked, and you care about them.
Yeah.
And you're drawn to them. And Christian has that natural magnetism.
Yeah, he does.
And he works hard, and he's really developed himself into one of the top young performers in New England. So very happy for him.
Yeah, he is. He's all three of those guys, phenomenal workers.
Mistress Belmont Davienne, 2 of the top women in New England, absolutely, hands down. Kathy's going through what she's going through, and obviously best wishes and thoughts to her.
Some great things were done for her, though, a couple weeks ago.
Yep. I got to be a part of that ceremony at APW with her, where she gave up the belt, and that was really cool to get to just see her and give her a hug.
Yeah.
But yeah, her, Davy, and she's had a great influence on Davienne too. And Davian, I think, and I had Brian Malonis on my show, and he had perhaps the best quote regarding Davian. She has no idea how good she is.
Right.
And that's the thing you can see with her is I don't think she's even scratched the surface of how good she can be, and she's already really good.
Yeah, she is.
So I look for huge things from her. I have a great story about Benny Jux. I don't know if we have time to get to that, but I'll run through real quick.
Okay.
VCW, we're doing one of those kind of locked-in nights for East Boston School where they have the kids come in and they spend the night locked in the school.
Right.
And we were putting on a show as part of that event.
Oh, wow.
Benny being Benny, we handed him a live mic, and I was in the ring and I got to introduce him. And he decided to really go at these kids and imply, all boys and things of that nature, and do what you do. And as I'm standing in the ring, I'm noticing that all these kids from East Boston are continuing to move closer and closer to the ring, and to the point where eventually they're all surrounding us. And I'm sitting here going, I'm trying not to get stabbed, Benny. Come on, let's ease up. These kids were getting mad, and then one of their teachers thought he was going to play along with the gimmick, jumps in the ring like he's going to fight Benny. I immediately I walked over to this guy and I grabbed him. I said, no, you need to get out of the ring right now. Like, you don't understand. Yeah. Like, I'm saving your life right now.
Yeah.
I got him out of the ring. But yeah, I definitely thought I was getting stabbed that night thanks to Benny, because he has a way of causing as much heat on a microphone as as good a natural heel on a microphone as you're going to find.
Wow.
And he will get the emotion out of people that he wants to.
That's a great story.
Absolutely. God, Brian Malonis, another guy who's one of the best in New England, and truly a great guy.
Yeah.
You sit down, you have a conversation with him. There's absolutely, he and I are very opinionated as well. We go back and forth about sports a lot and things like that, and politics sometimes. Just a great dude, and couldn't be happy for the success he's having with Ring of Honor.
Yes.
His own podcast is doing great, and he's just blowing up all over New England. And I'm happy to see him back and having success in Chaotic. I think the break between the two of them was exactly what they both kind of needed, and Brian really upped his game since then, and good on him for that. What else do we got? Taven, Orion, and Marcelia the Kingdom down in Ring of Honor. Just an amazing unit. TK has been a star since the day he walked into business.
Yes.
Another guy we talked about, Flip, who just got everything just such a natural athlete. Everything. TK is kind of the same way. Vinny's just a great persona. He's just tapped into his character and what he wants to put out there. Creative as well. Yeah, absolutely. And Taven's another guy, just really talented, and was put in an unenviable spot when the other guys left the Kingdom, and he really picked up the ball and ran with it. And good on him. So yeah, very, very, very happy for the success those guys are having. Oh, God, who else? I'm trying to get through as many people as I can. I want to leave off anybody. Bull Montana, the legend. I mean, what else can you say about Bull Montana? I can get into some stories about Bull, but it would take too long. But I will tell you this. One of the craziest experiences of my life, going to the NWA convention, driving 24 hours in a car with Chris Charisma, Jason Rumble, Bo Douglas, and Bull Montana. And 24 hours both ways. And Bo and Bull had quite a few run-ins on that trip. It was sort of an amazing thing. One of my favorite memories is just being in that car with those guys. But yeah, Bull's always been a great dude.
Right.
JT, I haven't worked with JT a ton. I've worked with him a few times. Really proud, really happy for all the success he's had.
Very talented.
Very, very few people in New England market themselves and go out of their way to work as hard at it as JT does. He really puts himself out there. He was one of the first guys I remember really to push merch on a national level, just really out there and hustling and doing his thing, and good for him. Lizzie, I love Lizzie. She's awesome. Kind of wish she hadn't had her foot problems and she actually got a chance to go through her training. There were dollar signs all over her when I saw her from an in-ring performer. Just never got to realize that. Vern Vicala, we talked about the young guys in New England. Vern, first of all, Vern's put in all the work. You can see it if you see kind of the progression he's made in building his body up.
Yep.
And he's been very, very overt about that, and good for him. Be proud of what you've done. But from a character standpoint, he's just on point. He knows exactly what his character is. Yep. He plays it beautifully, and he interacts it. And one of the things that's hard, it's great to know what your character is, but to be able to seamlessly integrate it with everyone else around you is a real talent that Vern has. Paul Richard, another guy who's always been great, the Extreme Enforcer. He hangs around the Belltime Club a lot with Bo. And he's awesome. Paul, I don't have a great story about Paul, but Paul's always been good to me, and then give him a shout out. Sheldon Goldberg, I've never worked with Sheldon, really. I've never worked for him.
Right.
I've had interactions with him. I've heard through the grapevine he's not the biggest fan of me.
Oh,
I
really?
don't really know why.
Yeah.
But, it is what it is.
Right.
You don't have to like everybody.
No, exactly.
I don't know what I did to upset him, if that's true, or maybe it's just guys talking and
Yeah, it
and
could
it's
be
not
just
true.
guys.
Who
It
knows?
could be, yeah.
But I've never had a bad word to his face with him, so
Right.
I don't know what that is, but that's what I've heard. So,
Okay.
Oh, God, who else do we got? Teddy Goods. Teddy Goods, another guy, should be on a
Unreal.
national promotion.
Absolutely. Should
As-
be right next to Biff.
Absolutely, is good in the ring.
Oni.
Another guy who's great at marketing himself. He's
Yes.
very, very hands-on with his creative designs. Him and Devil's Reject, Brandon Webb.
Oh, yeah.
Very creative in terms
Yes,
of
they
their
are.
merchandise. They do a great job, and they're all great in the ring. The top rope guys are all like that. Just
Oh,
really
yeah.
great
Well, how
guys.
about this guy?
Brickhouse, I've met Brickhouse a few times. I haven't had a chance to work with him, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Everybody I know raves about him.
Right.
I haven't. I worked with his kids at the last UFO show. Great job there. But yeah, who was the other? Danny Miles, another guy.
Yes.
Works up top
Yep.
rope a lot. Another guy I really like. Danny's always been awesome to work with.
Right.
Fun,
Hell of a talent, too.
Oh, fun guy to be
Wow.
around, and just another incredibly underrated guy.
Yeah.
For his size, some of the things he can do and the work he's put in, he's
Right.
very admirable. And I first met him when he was doing the Adorable gimmick up in APW, and now to see what he's doing, and one of the top guys for big time.
Oh, yeah.
With them, just great job.
Great
for him.
worker.
Yeah, absolutely. Mercedes, I didn't get to work with. Sasha Banks, I didn't get to work. I think maybe one show.
Yeah.
I did one or two with her. But it works as hard as anybody else in the
Right.
business. I watched she to see where she is, and the beauty thing for me with her is that she's never forgotten where she came from. She still
Right.
comes back. She visits
Yeah.
the Pro Wrestling Academy, New England Pro Wrestling Academy. Shout out to Brian Fury. But yeah, and when she did her show in Boston, she Ilya and Wagner and a bunch of the other
Yeah.
guys. So she's never forgot where she came from, and good on her for that, because a lot of people would in that
Right.
spot. So very happy for her. Big Bear, just a great dude.
Yeah,
Again, another guy I don't think I've ever had anybody say anything bad about.
Right.
So good. Always fun to work with Bear.
Well, like I was telling you off here, he's always just been so nice. Whenever he sees my grandson, he's just so nice. What's up, buddy? He comes
Yeah.
over, rubs his hand. Just like
Yeah.
you said, super guy.
Yeah.
You got like
Gentle giant.
20 seconds left. You want to plug something?
Yeah, Rundown Wrestling Podcast. You can catch it every Thursday night. We do live on YouTube and available on iTunes and all your podcast apps. And part of that feed is my Rundown Sit-Down series. So I'm having a lot of fun doing that.
Nice. Who do you got coming up? Do you have anybody who's
I got a
coming
lot
up?
of people on tap. I got Vern Vicalo I just booked today. We're going to have him on. And I got Bo Douglas is coming on. I got a bunch of people in tap. So
Nice. That's awesome. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this. Jason, thank you so
thanks
much.
for having me, Leo. It's
my-
rare for me to get to be the one interviewed.
Right
so.
now, my pleasure. Guys, we're out. Peace.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.